All right, folks. Heavy duty is like a comparison. So, is it more heavy duty than some machines? Yeah, but is it heavy duty in general? I think we're going to find out. This was used for something that was a little too heavy duty. Welcome to Sewing Machine Repair Guy. Today we have a Singer Heavy Duty, and this machine is not sewing well, jagged. Those are the notes I got, so let's take a look at this one. I kind of like these Singer Heavy Duties because they're everywhere. So these things have been made for a very long time. They're really kind of like the modern day equivalent of the old Singers because they made so many of these and they haven't changed this design in a very long time. The only thing different between the different types of Singer Heavy Duties are like how many stitches they can do, but it's the same chassis and everything. And then some of them have other like bells and features, bells and whistles and those sort of things. So this machine, I'm already seeing a problem, so I'm going to bring you in for this one. One problem with the heavy duty machine is that it's more heavy duty than a lot of other machines. Not saying it is completely a heavy duty machine, but people tend to try and use it on things they shouldn't. And can you see that right there? So at some point we either had a dull needle or we had too thick of fabric or something, and the needle has bent that needle plate down, and so we got all kinds of clearance issues down there, and yeah, that'll cause you to have a nasty looking stitch. Alright, well, without any further ado, let's get to the teardown. Alright, now we can get a little bit better look underneath here. You can see we are bent down significantly there in the middle. You can also see we've got some needle strikes around there, so this thing's been used a lot by somebody who may not be well trained in the use of a sewing machine because they're trying to pull their fabric or push the fabric through, and it's bending their needle, causing it to hit before or after that hole there for the needle. And then if we come in here, we can also see that our bobbin case has gone underneath the little piece that's supposed to stop it from turning, and so this bobbin case is not in the correct position. And let's see, yeah, so it should be more like that, and we should actually have a little gap here too when it's in the right position. That's touching, so I think we need to do an adjustment of that, and we'll have to loosen that to pull this out anyway and investigate it, see if we have any needle strikes. Alright, let's continue on. Yeah, it looks like our bobbin case may have survived the trauma. There's a small needle strike right there, but that's not in the thread path, so it's not going to catch any thread coming around. We might be good here. Alright, we just finished blowing out the machine and we're getting ready to oil and grease it and everything. But first I wanted to show you, check this out. On sewingmachinerepairguy.com you can get a shirt just like this, or even a jacket just like this, which is, it's a hoodie. This is a Champion hoodie, zip up. Anyway, check out sewingmachinerepairguy.com. And then for this sewing machine, I wanted to look at it because I did not pay attention to that rear cover when I was pulling it off to see where this was produced, and I'm going to guess right here. And looking down here, I see a nice felt pad that's wet with oil. Felt pad that's wet with oil. And the felt pads are actually sandwiched in there the way they should be so that the oil is getting to where it needs to be. So my guess is that this was made in Vietnam, not made in China. I always recommend, if you're going to buy a heavy-duty machine, you buy ones that were made in Vietnam. What's this say? It says made in China. Well, I was wrong. That's actually interesting. So maybe they have upped their game in China. Now this is twisted here. Let's see. Can you see that twist in there? Oh, maybe it's not where it should be. It is wet though, which is nice. So that either means that this has been maintained before, or it actually came with oil from the factory, which is not usually the case for... Now I'm seeing that this felt pad is worse than I thought it was initially, because it's not where it should be. So China's putting out a little bit better quality than what I expected, which is a good thing. Maybe they're making, improving their quality on all these machines. That's a lot of dirt right there. That's from over greasing, so maybe this has been maintained in the past. That is way too much grease. You may notice I hardly ever grease machines, and that's because you don't realize how little grease these moving parts actually need. I'm going to clean off most of this grease, and what's left there will be sufficient for this machine, because I'm clearing off grease that wasn't doing anything. So those of you that work on these machines, if you also notice the difference between Vietnam-made machines and China-made machines, and I'm talking about the heavy-duty, the Singer heavy-duty in particular, if you notice the same differences, let me know, because it looks to me like they're getting closer, like China's getting closer to the quality of Vietnam, but you don't always know. Alright, so we've got this on our needle plate. So I don't always just replace these right away. I like to try and repair them. So with this one, we're going to try and knock this down a little bit with a little persuasion. And I like using my plastic hammer along with, in this case, I want to use this brass punch, or, I mean, I don't know, you call it a punch, but the brass is softer than the metal on the needle plate. And then if you look, so my whole desktop surface here is one of those self-healing cutting mats, and it's not very self-healing if you look, but it is a cutting mat and it's very soft. So when you see me scraping around machines on their face on my mat, it's a soft surface. It's softer than the plastic on the machine. I had some comments about that recently, so I figured I'd let you know. So we're just going to knock on this a little bit. Now in order to get that nice and flush, I have to have this raised off the table a little bit. So I got it as flush as I could on the flat of the table. Now I want to just give it a little love tap here. I don't want to go too much with it. Okay, and then that way if it's too far I can always push it back a little bit. And I'd say we're just probably a tiny bit too far. Let's do that right there. And then we've got a little bit of a bow down here. It's funny when you start to look at all the skills required to repair sewing machines. And I say required, but it's not necessarily required, but because a lot of places will just they'll just replace this. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just like to repair if I can. So now we're flat. So woodworking or metalworking is one of our skills there, and if you look at that, it looks pretty darn flat. Hopefully we're somewhat in focus. We may not be. That whole thing could have been out of focus a little bit, but we're back. So we're pretty flat now. Notice I took out the plexiglass, the see-through plate there, plastic plate. So, okay. Now we've got some needle strikes on here that we want to smooth out. And I do that with sandpaper. Some people use a Dremel or something like that, but for me this is the easiest way. It's the way I like to do it. And then I just take a little strip of sandpaper. This is 220 grit. We want to make sure that when the thread goes through that hole that it's not getting caught on anything. And then we'll take a look at it. And then we got some on the top there we want to get. And that feels really smooth. We're still pretty flat on there, so I think we're good to go. All right, let's get this thing put back together, and then we will see if we can do some adjustments down here for our bobbin case area, which is where our problems were in this machine. I just saw something I missed. Yep. Interesting. That is hard plastic. Let's see. It's hard to see there. Let's. I think that's in focus, but this is. I found this in between the feed dogs. That is hard plastic. So this might be a cosplay machine sewing hard plastic, which, you know, it says on the nameplate that it's heavy duty, but when you try to put hard plastic through there, you're going to get the problems that we just saw. Interesting. It's fun to find clues like that every once in a while. Alright, now that we got this far put back together, we're going to stick our bobbin case in here like so. And in your bobbin case you want it to come back just slightly off of, I mean just a hair, enough for the thread to pass through off of that spring. See how the spring goes in when it goes, moves that way, and so every stitch this thing is moving like this. So this side the spring stops it, and then the other side this up here stops it. And we just need that stopper to be a little bit further in because it was too far out before. Alright, I got these nice and tight, and so what we have now is that the bobbin case comes over past the spring, so there's a little gap in there, and then moves back like that. So every stitch it's going to be doing that movement right there. Okay. Now we've got our adjusted needle plate. Alright, so a couple things I'm looking at while we're putting this machine together is I'm watching my feed dogs to make sure that they're aligned, and they are, so that's looking good. Feed dogs did not have damage to them. The other thing I want to do, and I need to take off the needle plate to do this, is I want to check my timing. So I want to look at my basic timing. I will say that I've gotten the service manual for the Singer heavy duty machines, and sometimes when I adjust it, the needle height and the timing to what that says, it's actually not right. It doesn't work right when we try to sew. So what I do is I put a needle in there and I'm going to check my approximate timing and needle height and make sure that it looks good to me. Okay, and that does look good to me. Let's go with a... Yep. So we're trying to right and a left position. And all of them, the needle goes behind the hook on the upswing. So that's good. We're going to see how well it sews next. Now the owner of this machine did tell me that they used it for upholstery. So probably not cosplay, but it is funny to think, you know, you always wonder what was made with this machine. So upholstery is what they did. May have done, you know, something a little too rough for what this little machine can handle, despite the name on the outside of the machine. When you compare this to an all-plastic machine, it's heavy duty. When you compare this to a machine that's designed to do upholstery work, it's not heavy duty at all. Our bobbin thread is black, so our top thread is going to be white. Tension's in the middle, needle's in the middle, width is 0, we're on a straight stitch, we're on a 2.5 length. Let's give this a try. The one thing I like about the heavy duty machines is that they're fast. Nice good speed to it. That looks really nice. That is a good stitch. So let's try zigzag now. So we're going for a low stitch length, we're looking for the high stitch width. This will tell us if we got our timing right. We didn't do any timing, but if we, you know, if the timing is right. Let's check it out. Again, for somebody that's a home gamer that's sewing, you know, making whatever, it doesn't matter. These heavy duties are actually nice machines. Oh, look at that. That's pretty good right there. That's a very consistent tension on there. Very happy with that. Does this have the waffle stitch though? Yes, it does. Okay, we're gonna go there and there. Do I need, we'll go 6, okay. The waffle stitch. And why do we like the waffle stitch? Well, because it tests our reverse feeding as well, so it moves the fabric forward and reverse, and you get to see like a good balance there and make sure that feeding is balanced the way it should be. And it helps when you select the correct stitch. So that looks really good. Happy with that. Yeah, it's not closing up all the way. We probably could adjust a little bit of that. Yeah, we did a little bit of that adjustment on there, so now our stitches are a little closer together, and that's looking better. So here's far apart, here's closer together. Not bad. Not bad at all. Again, you know, I want to get one of these just to have around the shop, and also to use to kind of show, to demonstrate certain features of sewing machines. The heavy duty is not a bad machine. If you want to buy one, I do have links to sewing parts online where they sell sewing machines, and you can find one of these on there. If you use my link, it does provide a little bit back to the channel at no cost to you, but you can check that out. I'm going to finish up by cleaning up the outside of this machine, and then it's ready to go sew another day and maybe do some more upholstery. No, let's not. No, let's not do more upholstery. Let's not. But it's sewing great. It's making a great stitch, and it is ready to sew another day. Thanks for watching.